Good evening and welcome to the ZWAC Show. ZWAC stands for the Zero Waste Advocacy Committee of the Northern California Recycling Association, and I'm the host, John Moore. So every month on the second Tuesday of the month, starting at 5 o'clock, mark it on your calendars as a recurring event. We try to show something new and something new and interesting and something old and worth knowing in the zero waste space. So tonight for our new and interesting, I'm thrilled to have with us Shira Lane, who is the founder and executive director of I guess it's a nonprofit, we'll find out, called Atrium 916, which is in Sacramento. And it would be too much of a shorthand to call it an art, facility. And I'm going to talk to Shira about what she does and how she got into this. And since the theme for tonight a little bit is art, Susan Kinsella of the Recycling Archives will come in later with the old and something worth knowing, talking about some recycling pioneers and their ventures into the art world. So to start with, I found something on Atrium's webpage, and it was a quote from Shira, and I really liked it, so I'm going to read it and I'm going to ask her about it. Shira says, "There's a difference between treating communities as bystanders and actually empowering them to become producers, contributors, and future leaders. Our future needs to be creative, sustainable, collaborative, and omni-considerate for humanity to survive." So, Shira, how does Atrium 916 try to achieve that lofty goal?
Well, thank you for having me. So the Atrium is a creative innovation center for sustainability. We did not intend to be that originally. Originally, we started off as a market for upcycled and repurposed items. The story starts that I was brought here to Sacramento, and I used to work in documentaries, and I was trying to figure out who are the local creatives that I can collaborate with here in Sacramento and really get to know. And so I decided to create a market for upcycled and repurposed items, so I could feel good about doing my own holiday shopping. I am addicted to watching upcycling videos. I don't know if you find art in upcycling, and this was made out of what? I can't get enough of that. So I wanted to create a marketplace that had local creatives that were upcycling. So I could buy from local people. I could walk around with my kombucha and just see artists actually make. And it would make me feel good about shopping for the holidays. It was always something I just did not enjoy. It felt counterintuitive to me. I do have a deck if you would like, if that's okay, if I could share. Is that okay?
I think so, because it sounds like it's easier to see it than explain it.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen. Hold on. There we go. Can you guys see my screen here?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to try and let me see how there we go. So the Atrium is actually the intersection between an environmental organization, an arts and creative organization, and economic development. Where all of that intersects is actually the Atrium. How we started was, like I said, a market for upcycled and repurposed items. It was supposed to be a one-time thing. It was supposed to just be fun and creative. But the artists that were there really liked the community. We let artists set up for 3 days and break down for 3 days, and that allowed them to build community and get to know each other and try new things. And the goal was that you had to be 100% eco-friendly, but you also had to make, so that way you could walk around and watch artists make. So you can see we had pottery, we had jewelry making, we had a whole room that was dedicated to making art out of cardboard. We had live music, and it was just fabulous. It was so much fun, and I kept getting asked to do it again and again. And then eventually, some of the art that was created, which is kind of cool. So eventually all the artists came to me and were like, hey, we really like this space. And we were pretty much just activating an old building that was deserted. And they're like, hey, we really like the place and the building's empty anyway. Maybe we can create a co-working space. I was like, oh no, I'm busy. I can't do that. And then the landlord of the building said, I really like what you're doing. And he would come and visit from like Santa Cruz, because he lived in Santa Cruz, just to see these events. And he was like, hey, so while I'm waiting to sell the building, why don't you kind of activate it? So I feel like I got it from both ends. And so, not to be the mean person, I was like, okay, but we're going to do everything zero waste. We're going to educate on zero waste. We're going to do events. Everything's going to be zero waste. And that's pretty much what we did. We had dance studios to labs to all kinds of things. And within pretty much 6 months, we grew to about 18 organizations within this space. We were making a more sustainable way to make beer without using as much water. We were coming out with all kinds of solutions. We suddenly became more of like a collaborative space. A lot of people came through, and the goal of the Atrium, the building had a huge atrium. So that's kind of how the nickname started. But also the atrium is the upper chamber of your heart that accepts all the blood. And we like to think that as people pass through the atrium, they leave with more oxygen, more ideas, more inspired to do more for the earth, the planet, and everybody else. And so that way they are more inspired to do more for their own community. And we're just there to help service and provide them tools. So we started doing creative economy meetings just as a way to get to know the community, what they need. And so we could understand how we as an organization could help. And they were big. And then suddenly in 2019, which is the year we incorporated, so we're kind of new, the year we incorporated, the city of Sacramento said that they were going to cut arts funding to $0. And we were like, well, that's not fair. So we kind of advocated, and we helped get all the arts community together, and we were able to raise the fund to 1.9 million. So we were really happy. And we realized what our power was, which was bringing people together. And it was just more people that cared. And it's amazing what you can do when you have creative people that care about the environment, care about social issues, and that are willing to work together. It's amazing. In 2019, we also had an art exhibit called Carts for the Arts. I don't know if you know about this, but the cartridges, it's a big problem. The lithium-ion battery is connected to the cannabis oil, and it wasn't actually able to separate, especially the ones that they were selling as disposable vape pens. And people were throwing them in the trash, which, as you guys know, it has a lithium-ion battery. It's going to explode, make a fire in the fire truck, like really bad, really bad. So we created an art exhibit that was all made out of these cartridges, out of the vape pens. So you can see we have like a 1920s flapper dress, we have necklace, we have sculptures, we had so many things. And this was sponsored by one of the producers. And this is how I got to meet actually Heidi Sanborn. We invited to do a panel discussion so that way we could educate the public on this issue. And so many people didn't know about what was going on. But after that exhibit, the people that were on that panel continued to meet again and again and again. And eventually legislation was passed. As you can see, we have more here. Legislation. This was the team that worked with me on that. Eventually legislation passed AB 1894 to ensure proper disposal of cannabis, vaping, and devices. So we were really excited that like we made a difference. You know, we started something, we sparked something and made a difference. COVID happened, and so we had to turn our creative economy meetings virtual. So this was actually in March, when nobody knew where the mute button on Zoom was at the time. Everybody was like, what is this thing? But yeah, it was a big problem. You know, nobody knew what the creative community, a lot of people, if you weren't hired by a company, if you were an artist that was making things and selling at festivals, you fell through the cracks. You couldn't file for the PPP loan. You couldn't file for unemployment. And there were no events. It was really bad. And so we started advocating. We worked with the mayor and the council and everybody. We started advocating that we need some investment. And so the mayor, with some of the federal dollars, allocated a huge chunk. The first step was $20 million, and we got $20 million. Oh, sorry, I'll go back. $20 million that went into the community, and that became grants and helped really uplift the community with some really cool projects. And it was the first time the city actually provided grants to individual artists. Up until then, the city only provided grants to nonprofits. So that was a huge win for us. But also, we also realized that a lot of artists, because of the festivals, there's going to be another closure. So at the end of the year, their holiday sales are just going to deplete. There's going to be no festivals, no markets, nothing. And we approached the city and said, look, we need to get the artists online as quickly as possible. And so we created a mask marketplace, but I'm skipping over a lot of stuff to kind of not bore you. Oh, hello. And then, so we created an online marketplace called Sacramento.shop. And it was a way for the community to support the community. Like, shop your shopping online and support what's made within our own county. We were able to, and it was a place where you just came, dropped off your stuff. We photographed it, did it, built the whole platform for them. And we were able to help 40 artists at that time. And it was very successful. Today, we have about 140 creatives on our platform, and it's growing as well. So that's kind of like our incubator. And now we help creatives, our circular economy marketplace. We help now local makers build products. Either they're upcycled. So if you can see, I don't know if I have there it is. This is upcycled from jeans. Down here below, this is not leather. This is made out of inner tube tires and recycled copper. This is a jacket. In here are actually the parts of the lithium ion battery that she turned into buttons. Over here, you see these are suitcases and coolers that an artist has upcycled into battery operated Bluetooth speakers. So he takes speakers from cars that are left over, and they're amazing. The Bluetooth, the battery lasts for 8 hours. They're awesome and they look cool. Our circular economy one, so anything that has packaging, we do not accept plastic. So anything that packaging, you have to accept, as a producer, you have to accept the packaging back. So we were pretty much doing EPR before we even knew it was called EPR. And that has been really successful. So at this point, our artists, when they drop off new materials, they pick up the empties, they take it, sanitize it, refill it, and bring it back to the store. And we're really excited about this, our circular economy marketplace. So it really started as a COVID project and now is an incubator. And just this year we started an accelerator. So artists that are selling well on this platform, now we're helping them grow into the micro manufacturing that we want to see in the future. We want to see producers and micro manufacturers that are prepared for circular economy, that will produce in a sustainable way and that are thinking about their products and the packaging at the end of the life of their products. So this is what it looks like. And then, later on, as COVID kind of died down, we could open up, and we turned it into a retail store, our space. And so this is, you can see here, we have tables and chairs, and we're an art cafe. So apart from buying things, you can also do things there. You can sculpt your own clay magnet, you can paint a canvas, you can paint your own reusable tote bag. And the idea is we educate you as well. So it's kind of like activation and fun. We like to say we serve art, not food. So you can booch and paint and hang out and just be among community that cares. We feel like that's really important, is finding tribe, finding community that cares. In 2023, we launched our mobile art cafe. This is our zero waste mobile art cafe. We call her Zmacky. She's a 1950s King's horse trailer. She's solar powered. And when we go out and paint, we leave absolutely no trace. So she pops up with 10 tables, 20 chairs, like a Dr. Seuss kind of story. And you get to sit and paint. And again, we have all kinds of crafts. With that, we have an, what do you call it? We have a game, an app that we developed that you play. It's called the Recycle Challenge. So you kind of have to play the game. It's a trivia game. You learn about what's recyclable, what's not. We break some of the myths. And so you get to paint, especially if we're doing free events, you get to paint after you have played the game. So it's kind of like a sneaky way of educating people on recycling. And then we do a lot of activations. You know, we have mobile art cafe and different installations. I don't have here our newest installation. I don't think I do. No, I don't. Which is our CRV collector, which is we upcycled from a scrapyard into an art installation that collects bottles and cans, but opens up from either side. So that way the unhoused or anybody that's a collector can come and take them. So it's not like we're collecting it for ourselves, we're collecting it for the community, and the community collects it for the community. So community helping community. It's kind of like fun things. In the winter during the holiday, so if you do come to Sacramento, come and check out, we do something called Sustainable Santa. And we educate kids that we kind of create this whole experience and they get to go and we do professional photos. But we tell the kids a whole story that Santa is really important because he protects the North Pole and keeps the North Pole cold. It's really important that we keep the North Pole cold. And what can you do to help Santa keep the North Pole cold? Because the North Pole protects the whole planet. And that's really what Santa's doing, is protecting the whole planet. So we've kind of created this story. It's pretty famous now in Sacramento, you know, our Sustainable Santa. So we love that project every winter. So come visit. The Polar Express is really close by too. Then SB 54 came by. And SB 54, Heidi Sanborn with National Stewardship Action Council reached out to me and said, hey, we're working on SB 54. I kind of heard about it. And she invited me to partake in the working group. She created a working group for implementation of SB 54. I assume everybody here kind of knows SB 54. Yeah. So I kind of joined that. Oh, I think that's it. Yeah. That's it on that, but I'm going to share a little bit more. I thought I had more here, but I don't. Oh, I do. Hold on one second. There. Oh. Nope, I can't show. So I'm just going to stop sharing there. Sorry about that. There we go.
Thank you. That was wonderful. It's what a wonderful tale of success and resilience. You know, raising money and making a cool place for people to hang out. I had to ask a couple of questions. The facility looks large. It almost reminded me of Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley, because it's got a lot of different things going on in different spaces. What's the size of the place?
We did have a huge building. We started off with a 34,000 square foot building. When COVID happened, the building sold, and now we moved into a 3,500 square foot building. The space that we have, and we also have artist studios connected to us. So we have a zero waste costume shop, and we have a photography studio, and we have another artist who upcycles and builds fashion runway sets. So we had to downsize a lot during COVID. But yeah, so now it's 3,500. We take up a strip there in Old Sacramento, and we do a lot of things indoor, outdoor.
That sounds like a lot of change going on in a couple of years.
Yeah, keeps things interesting.
For the upcycle, the retail upcycled store, what would your sales look like for that?
They've grown. Oh, go ahead.
Right.
Oh, they've grown over the years. Pretty much our sales come to about 150,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more of an economic development program where we meet. So anybody that applies, we meet with them for an hour. We
Mhm.
go over their product. We educate them on sustainability, how they can source better, look at their packaging better, really plan out what they're going to do with their packaging. And they have to meet a certain level to be in the store. We don't say no to people. We just say, hey, you're not ready yet. And then we invite them to another interview. So it's kind of like we're trying to educate as we go on that. So we do get some grants for economic development. We are helping build the makers of tomorrow, the micro manufacturers of tomorrow.
So it sounds a little like the TV show Shark Tank. If I had a product that I thought was pretty cool, made from recyclable products, I would have to convince you to sponsor me and give me space and, economic, business training. Is that kind of how it works?
You apply and then you come for an interview. It's free. We don't charge you anything. We don't want a piece of your business, like Shark Tank. It's free to be on that platform. You just have to live within Sacramento County. And the split is 70-30. So it's on consignment. The maker gets 70% and we as a nonprofit take 30%. So we try to be very favorable and as a step up to help people get into wholesale. Yeah, and that's how we kind of like from the SB 54, that's how we kind of led into Circular California, which we just launched this week. So I'm happy to talk about that whenever you're ready.
Tell us, what is Circular California?
Oh, super fun. So we just launched the website, circularcalifornia.org. We're coming up with SB 54, I don't know how much people are familiar with SB 54, but SB 54 is an EPR law that passed, and many EPR laws are passing, which is an extended producer responsibility. What is unique about California's SB 54 is that it really emphasizes that a source reduction is reuse and refill. And within statute, the PRO, the Producer Responsibility Organization, is required to invest in reuse infrastructure. And so I've been saying, like, well, if they're required to invest in reuse infrastructure, this is awesome. How can we create reuse infrastructure that works statewide, that is interoperable, works within whatever we have existing infrastructure right now, but just is designed smartly from the get-go to be successful. What recycling really wasn't, it was kind of hodgepodge, put together a little bit. There wasn't one strategic plan, at least as far as I know. Please re-educate me, Mary and Dr. Dan. But the idea is that we want to kind of create brainstorming sessions. We don't know what this will be, but it's a brainstorming sessions from people across the whole spectrum to come up with what would it look like. We have an idea, which would be hub and spoke situations that we kind of connect and make it so that reuse is accessible, available, and equitable. I'm happy to take questions on that.
I'm almost overwhelmed at the different things that you're doing. Is this like 100-hour-a-week job for you?
Yeah, I'm kind of addicted to my job. I really do like what I do. So yeah, and we have a TV. I forgot to mention the TV series. Yes.
You didn't mention the TV series. What's that?
So we produced a 6-episode TV series on sustainability. Each episode works on a different aspect. So one is like on food waste, fashion, cosmetics, tires, paint, and electronics. And it's going to air on PBS, and we're going to work with CalRecycle. So hopefully we can use that as educational material. We want to get more educational, fun material to get into school, waste reduction education into schools more. And that can be paired with our mobile art cafe, but it can also just be sent to teachers. It's 26 minutes each episode, and then they can have discussions. It really goes through a person who was about to throw something away. I'll give an example with our electronics episode. He's a DJ, and then he was about to just throw his speaker to the curb because it no longer worked. It was tweaking. And then a friend comes up and goes, "What are you doing? It's so bad. You can't do that." And he's like, "Yeah, somebody will pick it up." And he's like, no, you're creating electronic waste and it's not good. And then he goes on a journey to see like really what happens, and kind of comes to a realization that, you know, his actions have a huge effect, and just one person does have an effect. And then he meets an artist who is upcycling speakers and doing new things with them. So really kind of opening the mind into, we can reuse, we can repair, there are other things than just throw away and buy new. And then it ends on the person thanking that person that introduced, because I think it's really important that we tell people, like, hey, you shouldn't do that. So, and that's the episode. And I feel like it really breaks some myths that people think about end of life of their product, or they don't think about it.
What is the target air date for the?
We don't have a target air date, but it will be 2025, probably Q1 or Q2 of 2025.
Will it be distributed PBS nationally, or do we have to be in Sacramento to see it?
It could be. We're working with NIDA right now with PBS, so it might be. But also, we plan to have it online. We plan to make it accessible. Our goal is to make it free and available and accessible for whoever wants it. So,
I'd like to see it right now. Is it available?
yeah, if you go to, you can see. It's not available to watch, but you can watch the trailer. And that is at, I'm going to see here if I can, it's at atrium916.com/TV.
Okay.
I put that in the chat. You can see the little trailer and what it's all about. If you would like to be a sponsor, so your logo is part of it as it kind of gets distributed, great. So feel free to, oh, thanks. Yeah, feel free to kind of watch that and see. And if somebody does want to be part of it and put their logo and be part of that, we're happy to do a private screening so you can see a full episode and really understand what your logo will be in front of. But that's the PBS TV series. Yeah, and I'm really excited. So July 22nd, if there are people here that feel that they are up for brainstorming, and it will be a lot of working the mind, feel free to go to circularcalifornia.org and just fill out that form that is there. Yeah, and we'd be happy to connect and be part of the brainstorming. I'm very giddy and nerding out about it. I think it's going to be cool.
Well, it sounds like you've had a lot of success bringing people together. And I know that one of your stated goals is that people learn to be omni-considerate, which sounds like being nice. What's the secret? What's your secret for getting people together and motivating them to do stuff that's good?
Being honest and kind and listening. I think listening, when you listen to your community, you actually hear what the issues, and a lot of time the community will have the solution. The community will know best of its own community. So I think it's just mainly really just listening and being available to listen, and just being a tool to help people get where they want to be. I think is what it is. But I don't know. I like people.
How do you like the state legislative process? I know that you assisted NCRA with their lobbying day recently. How did that go?
I thought that was awesome. I thought we did great. A lot of the people that we met were already kind of for what we were talking about. We didn't really hear any resistance or anything like that. I felt like we educated some of the staff on some things that they didn't know. Like some of them didn't even know what PFAS are. So that was interesting. One thing I will say that I think that NCRA can do is get more people that are in the valley. So people maybe from Fresno or deeper. So that way we can have some constituents and talk to people in red states. I think that would be really helpful too, especially if there's something contentious. So having some constituents from not red states, I would say red counties more.
Can you tell us how to do that at some point? Because we've thought before too, and it just, I don't know if we like the bandwidth or the smarts, or the fact that we don't live in those red counties. We haven't been able to do it. So
have you reached out to the people that work in those cities, the people that are dealing with hauling the trash and things like that within the city or county that are dealing with it?
used to do more of it. I've been, for example, to Reading and Red Bluff and places like that. Also Mendocino. The smallest place we ever worked was Manzanita, Oregon, with 600 people. And they created a new reuse space there and took over their little transfer station as well. That was a old appropriate technology person whose name was Elaine DeMall. She's still alive, actually, but her husband, Tom Bender, is now deceased. But they were leading lights back in the 70s. But I wanted to say, is it okay with you, John, for me to talk for just a second about the plan?
The what plan?
Well, the plan that I heard her just calling for. There is a plan. And it basically is, and there's many plans. There are many different versions of this plan. What we call it sometimes is a 12 category resource recovery park. You could have one in Sacramento. It would be a great thing if the public owned the land and developed it. It would probably be somewhere between 10 and 30 acres. It would be basically a mall with a lot of variations in what's going on inside. Many different operators, not one thing fits all. Lots of little micro enterprises, lots of space for that. We've designed for that actually in places like Kauai. We had sheds that were supposed to be used for rental for people, because the ships dock real close to the airport, and we thought all the makers around could have a little mall kind of thing there. But the solid waste people got in the way and didn't want to have it, so it never happened. But anyway, there is a plan. There's many plans. It's a 12, and it ends up with a 12 category resource recovery park. 12 categories because there are 12 market categories that we now call solid waste. And if you get them all, you have zero waste. If
I love it.
all of them turn into commercial, whatever, whether it's bulk commodities or individual items, you end up with zero waste. So that's it.
Can you share that? Can you share that? Is that visible to read or see anywhere?
Well, yes, that's what's going to be on our website. It's in many of our interviews because we've had a lot of influence over the years with different people, but we've also done it with respect to Berkeley. Berkeley's a good example. It's on its way. It's not there yet, but it's on its way. We've had to fight a lot of battles. It's not that easy sometimes. Right now, I think we're on a turning point kind of situation where it could become a lot more easy than we think. Because there's so much funding available right now for infrastructure, and we just have to redesign it. We have to interpret it as infrastructure for zero waste resource recovery parks.
So Shira,
Build them.
Dan touched on something that was how I would have answered your question about reaching out to the red counties.
Yeah, that's right.
Not to say that it couldn't be different and change, but historically, the red county governments have been dominated by the garbage hauler, and garbage is the competitor with zero waste. They both want the same things. They want to burn and bury it, and we want to reclaim it. So the politics of garbage are such that in these smaller places, it was easy for the garbage company to dominate the disposal field and convince the city fathers and their engineers and everybody else's with their campaign contributions to do it the way they wanted to do it, which wasn't necessarily a good way to do it. And as you're finding in Sacramento, which, probably is a red county, there's
The
some
purple one. The purple one.
there's some enthusiasm to make some
Don't give up.
Sacramento was a pretty bad in terms of, letting their garbage company run the disposal system. So I like to think that what you're doing can catalyze some change, but if you're asking why there hasn't been an outreach from NCRA to the Central Valley, it's partly that, I think. Mary Lou, did you want to add?
Well, actually, I have a question to ask. I'm on some Gavin Newsom text, massive text threads. And a few weeks ago, he had a workshop that I intended to attend, but I didn't get a chance to because something else came up. And I was wondering if you have any contact with it. He was having a 3-day workshop for people, one day each, 1 day, 3 weeks in succession. And it was how to talk to methods of talking to people who you disagree with and who disagree with you. Which seems to me we could all do with a lot of training in that. So do you know of any workshops like that, or have you heard of his or the one his team was organizing?
I would love to be introduced though, Mary. I would love to be introduced. That would be amazing. No, I haven't.
Yeah. Well, it was just a mass distribution text and I signed up, but then I ended up not being able to attend. So I was disappointed because it seemed like we could all use a dose,
Yeah, I think it's really important. It's really important to listen and not to jump to defense. I think that's the hardest part, is that if somebody doesn't agree with you, that's not an attack on you. So just to listen, they might have a different perspective. And in terms of the red counties, I think in the red counties, I don't know, maybe an opportunity would be like talking to those communities that are affected by it, and that would be environmental justice. But happy to kind of jump on a side call on that. That was just something that we noticed as Nama, who's on this call right now, was with me. We were like, hey, we're kind of advocating for people that already agree. I think even though it strengthened the position and made it really cool, but I think it would be even better if we could go as constituents to those red counties.
Well, you're doing a lot of very rich things, and I could mine a lot of questions from, but I'm going to have asked 2 more, and then I'm going to turn it over to audience questions. So the first is, any plans to expand Atrium beyond Sacramento? Or do you have?
Yes, so we have a philosophy about that. We're working on a playbook. My goal is not to expand. My goal is for other nonprofits to do what we're doing, and for us to have a playbook so other nonprofits can do it. Our goal eventually is to create a sustainable creativity hub, similar to what you were saying, Dr. Dan, which is we wanted to have reuse collection. So it'll be part reuse collection, part artist studios that will do education, kind of like a mall where you'll have repair, you'll have the shop repair, you'll have the costumers, similar to what we have, just bigger. Again, education centers, so that way you can do field trips and educate, and focusing on repair, but also focusing on precious plastic. Are you guys familiar with precious plastic?
Precious plastic is not the way you would normally call it.
No. So yeah, not precious plastic, but it's a nonprofit organization I've been following for a number of years, and they've grown. And what they do, they're trying to create micro recycling communities. And so their whole goal is like, instead of sending products to one place and this and that, it's like, how can we recycle the plastic that is already within the community into items, and educating people. They're educating people about the types of plastic, what it is, because people really don't know. And once you know and you understand how it affects the environment, it's really powerful. So the idea is that we would have a reuse facility within it, and products that don't get sent back to the producers within the reuse facility. And like you said, there's now funding for infrastructure, and that's why I think it's really important that we strategically plan reuse infrastructure. Reuse infrastructure is what's going to get us down and get source reduction. But it's only going to work if we have one cohesive plan that works, so that way as a consumer, you're not confused. If we let the market create the reuse infrastructure, we're going to have tens of thousands of different apps you have to download for each brand. It's going to be confusing. Smaller producers are not going to be able to have the same access to certain infrastructure as larger producers, so they'll monopolize. Infrastructure just can't be created by the marketplace. Infrastructure needs to be strategically created, either with government, in partnership with government. And that way everybody can jump on. I like to say, like, we need to build the river so that way the market can build the boats to float on it. And we need to have something that's easy for the consumer. If we have one system that is statewide, and let's say we have a symbol, and that symbol only gets put on a product after they are accepted into the program, now we have control over the symbol. And then now, since we have control over the symbol, we can educate the consumers like, hey, you see this symbol, that goes in your reuse bin. And will that be an additional? Yeah. We invented recycling in the 70s. I think it's time that we reinvent reuse, reinvent reuse. We used to do reuse. We can do it again, I think, and we can do it smartly and smarter. So that's why I'm really passionate about building an interoperable reuse infrastructure that really works, that needs to be an economic development driver for the community. It needs to help, it needs to support, like it needs to do a lot of things. And for that, we need to strategically come together collaboratively. It's really important that we collaborate. It's only going to work if we collaborate.
Well, here's something for you to think about. At Urban Ore, about a year or two ago, one of our best thinkers on the staff came up with a list of all the, and this relates to our point of sale system. We needed to know all the different categories of what reuse breaks down into for our purposes for retail sales. And it turns out that there were 200 and I think it was 80 categories of reusable goods.
Yeah, there'll probably be a lot.
Within doors itself, just doors, and I was for a long time our door guy, there's about 30 categories. So there's subcategories within the 280 categories. It's very, very complex when you really start getting into it. Talk about being in it.
So
And the more you subdivide, the more money you're going to make from it.
That's right.
Cleaner it is, the better it is.
So my last question for Shira, for you is, and I ask this for everybody that comes on the show, how in the heck did you get to where you are founding Atrium 916? What was your journey to get there?
I think I didn't plan on it. That was my whole thing. I did not plan on it. We started that upcycle pop marketplace, and it was the community that said, hey, we really like this. We want to turn it into something more. And then when they asked to create a co-working space, and then the landlord wanted me to do it, we did, and it grew so quickly. Upcycle Pop was just a project of my production company. It grew so quickly with 18 organizations within 6 months that we realized we had to incorporate and make it official and turn it into a, and the city wanted to support what we were doing. So it was more the community told me that this is what I should be doing. I feel like more. And then it just evolved from there. And we just kind of constantly see like, oh, this is where we need to be right now. Okay, let's do that now.
It's great that there's still pioneers out there doing pioneering work, and you're one of them. Wonderful.
Well, thank you.
In a pioneer town.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
Well, it sounds like you were drawn more than you pushed.
we're
Many people try to push. They have an idea and they push their way here and they push there, but it sounds like you were drawn. People drew you in.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Others did. Yeah. I wrote a little essay about a year ago called Attraction is Urban Ore's Secret Sauce. It's all about attracting people. You don't want to, mandates are okay, but attraction is way better.
I agree.
So at this point, I'll turn it over. Anybody else have questions for Shira?
This is kombucha, by the way, in case you were wondering. There you go.
So let's talk more.
Oh, Doug has a question.
Yeah, I really commend you for everything that you're doing. It's really quite inspirational. But I did have the same question that Mary Lou has, and that is, the last photo you showed was a boat mired in plastic floating all around. Where in the world was that taken?
That's a great question. Hold on one second. Maybe I have the source here. If I'm not mistaken, it is probably in Southeast Asia. I think I got this from Unsplash. I can get back to you on that, but yeah. That
That's
image
important.
is really
Nasty looking lagoon.
I was
sadly,
guessing.
that is a lot of that is from California. Like you
Yeah.
guys know that. It's like that we export a lot of our recycling and then consider it recycling. That's so much fun. Not.
But we don't.
Well, until the market.
No. Sorry, what was that?
Until there was a market correction.
Yeah.
So, but I think that was Southeast Asia. Unsplash, it's a kind of like a, I forget what you call it. Kind of for stock photos, but
Uh-huh.
Unsplash. It's great, and they have free photos as long as you know, help promote the photographers.
Free images, yeah.
But yeah,
1 million free images. Oh my gosh.
Unsplash, they're a great organization.
So
Yeah.
unless there are other questions, I'm going to segue to our next section, and sure, you're very welcome to stay on board. Susan Kinsella is going to read from some excerpts from the recycling archives for people. Some of the pioneers talk about their artwork. So
Love it.
stay tuned. Susan, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I also have a PowerPoint, so I need to share here. Share. Well, let me see where it went. Okay, can you all see that?
Oh, there's the lone recycler. We were talking.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Let me go back because I have a script here I want to use. Okay, so it seems to me, listening to what I've heard about the program Atrium Shira was just talking about for Atrium, that a lot of what I want to talk about today is maybe some of the early precursors to stuff like that. So, of course, recycling, a lot of recycling employs complex technology. Things like actions like collecting materials, manufacturing recycled products, and it also requires intricate organizing, such as for collection truck routes and recreating contracting processes for governments and corporations to buy recycled products. And those are actually, maybe surprisingly, pretty interesting areas of expertise, at least according to those who tend towards being rather wonky, which is probably the majority of recyclers. But there's also been a lot of fun in recycling, with terrific parties and wild dancing, and also incredible flights of fancy through various kinds of art. So art is not only fun, but it's also often highly effective in getting across important understandings about recycling and reusing resources. So that's what I want to talk about today. This is Pavitra Krimmel, and she was an ingenious and wildly creative recycler who used her talents to help develop Garbage Reincarnation's Recycle Town in Sonoma County. This was a community recycling center with a huge outside yard and 4 buildings made entirely from salvaged materials, built to look like an old Western town, including using used lumber for structural support and walls made from garage doors. And this is where the public could bring drop-off materials to recycle and then forage for other materials they might want to take home. Pavitra organized and ran the reuse yard there, where tinkerers and people looking for odd parts for all kinds of projects could come and often find what they needed. In the early 1990s, she was highly influential and pushing recycling beyond just collecting materials. When she gave a series of speeches at recycling conferences, and in these, she emphasized that recycling is not the beginning and end of environmental resource management. Rather, she argued, we have to start with reducing waste and then reusing materials. Now, these days, it might be hard to grasp why this was a pretty radical message at that time. But many of the large city recycling collection programs were still just being organized then. And recycling conferences were all about, what kind of trucks to buy and how to plan collection routes and where to sell the collected materials and things like that. And now she was telling us, hey, you forgot the most important steps here. So believe it or not, there was resistance at first. But Pavitra's speeches and dynamic insistence slowly expanded recyclers' awareness. And within a few years, source reduction, which is what we called it then, now it's more likely to be called just reduce, became an essential program not only at local governments, but even at the EPA in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, sometime around 1993, Pavitra also developed an annual contest in Sonoma County that brought laughter, creative imagination, and joy to the concept of reuse and recycling. She called it, "Oh, rapture, it's scrapture," and described it as a junk art sculpture contest. Now, you might imagine that the art might be described as junk, but actually some of the art entered into the contest each year used what was called junk in amazingly sophisticated ways. For example, Brian Tedrick is a prolific Sonoma County sculptor with dozens of amazing installations all over the county and beyond. And he also has built huge mobile sculptures for many of the annual Burning Man events. And he has won a long, long list of awards over the years. But here I've listed two of them that are most relevant to our current topic, since he won them for his entries in Recycletown's Scrapture competition. The pictures here are not the Scrapture entries, but they give a good idea of how imaginative his sculptures are and how they incorporate found objects. In 2019, the Soda Rock Winery in Healdsburg burned down in one of Northern California's increasingly devastating wildfires. Brian himself had lost his sculpture studio 2 years before in another fire, and he was close friends with the owner of the Soda Rock Winery. After some time of getting their heads around what had just happened, the winery owner suggested to Brian that they use the destroyed remnants to create something positive, something triumphant, something that celebrated life rather than destruction. So Brian took the burned and twisted remnants, and here is what he created. This is a 28-foot tall bear rising up over the landscape, using a lot of the burned materials and everything from that fire, and he even included several feet of one of the burned I-beams in the bear's ankle. Now, Sonoma County is blessed with creative artists. And here's another one, Michael Garlington, who used materials from Recycletown to create some of his masterpieces. And here's one of those. This was on the Recycletown website, so they're obviously particularly proud of his using their materials in his art.
That's Picasso's head, isn't it?
Guernica, yeah.
Guernica.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah,
didn't
that
recognize
that cow head, or I mean horse head,
Yeah.
Guernica.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is,
Wow.
oops, where'd I go? I have to go back here. This is an elaborate dress and outlandish headpiece also that he created, also with materials from Recycletown. And he had a bunch more pictures of like Susan Sarandon and other famous actors wearing some of his recycled content kinds of clothes. They're pretty cool. Unfortunately, Pavitra Krimmel died suddenly and unexpectedly in 2004 when she was only 54 years old. The shock of losing her was one of the motivations for creating the Recycling Archives project. I don't know if her Oh Rapture is Scrapture contest was the first such competition, but it has influenced similar kinds of events, such as contests and recycled materials fashion shows and endowed artist spaces and more in places like San Francisco and locations all over the country. Recycletown was forced to scale back somewhat a few years ago, but I believe that it's still open and operated now by Republic Services of Sonoma County.
Oh dear.
Okay, so here is another take on incorporating art into recycling. The East Bay Depot for Creative Reuse is described on its website as a leading pioneer in the field of reuse. The depot was founded in the late 1970s by a group of Oakland Unified School District teachers for the purpose of providing ecological reused supplies at low cost to educators with dwindling budgets. Originally, according to our interview with Arthur Boone, the depot was located in an old Oakland fire station with Chuck Papke as the manager. Chuck set up a number of early recycling projects in the 1980s and early 1990s. The purpose of the depot was to enable any teacher in the Oakland School District to get all kinds of materials to use in their classrooms. And that idea obviously has spread all across the country. So now there are a lot of depots of creative reuse in many cities around the country. Chuck used the old lunchroom that had been used by the firefighters as his office, and the depot merchandise was displayed and sold in the bigger space where the 2 fire trucks had been parked. I thought that was pretty cool. Arthur Boone describes in his archives interview how he helped keep the depot going when Chuck left for a job in Oregon. Eventually, though, in 1993, the Alameda County Waste Management Authority, which is now stopwaste.org, awarded the depot a major service contract to operate Project Create, which was an environmental education program, and Trash to Treasures, which is also an annual junk art contest. Chuck Papke's death in 1995 shocked California recyclers, and that was also one of the motivations for starting the Recycling Archives. Meanwhile, Linda Levitsky was hired to be the East Bay Depot's executive director and provided powerful leadership for more than a decade. She was hired in 1997, and I think she only retired a few years ago. So, and people were pretty enthusiastic about all the tributes to her when she was retiring. In 2007, the depot moved to Oakland's Telegraph Avenue, where it could provide art education to 70 schools within its 3-mile radius and over 20,000 participants, while serving more than 36,000 customers per year in its store. The depot was hit hard by the pandemic, but now, again, it's open to the public and it's a go-to place for all kinds of donated and reused materials for art projects and lots of other creative endeavors. Okay, so here is Nancy Gurrell, who used art in a different way to influence the development of the recycling system. Nancy is an immensely talented graphic artist whose posters and comic books and illustrations were wonderfully effective, especially in Berkeley's years-long journey to figuring out how to create a stellar recycling system. Whoops. She worked in an after-school program where she loved creating plays and projects for the kids. So naturally, she created educational comic books as well. In this one, the Recyclones used dance to teach the Plum Street kids recycling. So first they did the bottle bop. And then they did the can, followed by the bundle boogie to gather up newspapers and magazines. The plays that she created for the kids, and she was just fabulous at describing them. She was even singing some of the songs that she'd written for the kids, and it was just great fun to interview her. The plays she created for the kids often turned them into gods and goddesses who had great fun saving Mother Nature, and it also gave the kids the experience of acting out being powerful and solving important problems. and then the lone recycler, who educated both kids and adults and the public about the importance of saving resources from being wasted in the waste stream, and was part of the campaign to force the city of Berkeley to abandon plans for an incinerator that would have placed all its residents downwind of hazardous pollution. And instead, the lone recycler helped Berkeley turn to creating a recycling system that now is a national example of excellence. Nancy also drew delightful and incisive cartoons, as well as clever posters. So, as you can see, art has put a lot of fun into recycling, and it has also helped make important environmental changes. And of course, that's why we want you to recycle. Yeah,
Thank you, Susan. That was marvelous.
thank you.
It really was a great pairing. You know, we tried on this show to talk about the old and the new, and this was a great example of how some of the old things that people did a long time ago kind of segue into the things that Shira's bringing energy to do now. So that was really great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm excited about hearing what you're doing, Shira. It just seems like it blossoms out from a lot of these other things that we were doing years ago too.
Yeah, I feel like we were in the same spaces. It was just the thing we got to do. And I so appreciate what you put together here. That was a lot of work. So thank you so much.
Well, Shira, thanks again for being with us tonight, and Godspeed in all the things you're doing. Next month, Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month, we will have again something new and interesting and something old and cool. So I hope you join us then. And for tonight, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.